Wade and Ryan here, NFL in London. The draft is done. It's all over.
It's over.
2026 NFL draft is over. Not since Bane killed Ben Roethlisberger in The Dark Knight Rises has Pittsburgh been celebrating so much.
Well, they don't have
Big
Rodgers
days.
yet, so they might not be.
They don't. Bane would have killed him or saved him,
Yeah.
made him walk the ice. I don't know. Death. So yeah, 300,000 people. It was quite the shenanigans going on there. I don't know. Would you?
I would never do
I'm gonna
it.
ask
No.
you.
Go
No,
and
that's
watch
what I'm
it
asking.
live.
Would you stand
No.
there?
No.
Especially since like Buffalo, you had one pick and you traded it away in the first round. So
Yeah. It's not even that. It's like when you watch the New Year's Eve in New York in Manhattan,
Yeah.
and you're like, I would rather be dead than be stuck in that crowd. Like, what if you got to take a piss and you're in the middle of 300,000 people, finding them again in the toilet? Like, it's a nightmare. You just got to put your Depends on and just wait till your team drafts.
Yeah, I mean, just
absolute nightmare.
It seemed like mayhem when it came down to actually just trying to get around, trying to do stuff. And as you say, like if you're trying to get like take a piss or something like that, just don't even bother. Really.
But
don't even bother.
I do like that they've switched it, because it used to always be in New York, right? It used to always be in and I like that now they've kind of switched it and every team kind of gets a chance to host it. Because, like, especially since, most teams aren't ever going to host a Super Bowl, this is kind of the closest they can get to. So, like teams like, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, who
Chicago.
are never going to get a Super Bowl, Chicago, they can get a draft. It's kind of cool. So I think it's a smart move, but it was just one of those uneventful drafts. There wasn't any like, oh my God, mind-blowing stuff. There's a few little, they tried to make us care, but there was nothing that was, holy shit, that was...
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in the previous episode, that it wasn't. I mean, you didn't feel it as exciting going into this. There wasn't like a lot of people. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's going to be key. And aside from Mendoza, who swore potty mouth, then you sort of go, oh, it's not really that exciting. So there was interesting. Teams like Buffalo who traded up and found their guys.
They
traded down. Sorry. And there were a few teams who traded up, but you're like, okay. I think also one of the ridiculous things is, we're all pundits in this wonderful game. When you see someone's like, I grade their draft a C-, it's like, okay, Nostradamus of the NFL, how do you know?
The problem with stuff like this is there's never any repercussions for it, right? Because no one's keeping track. No one, like, maybe in the day of AI, once someone's just gonna like be able to keep track of every opinion you've ever had and be like, this guy's full of shit. He is wrong 100% of the time. So again, I agree. The draft trades are hilarious, but they do make you feel good. For a second, whenever you see a good one, you're like, that guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
The other people are a bunch of morons. So it just gives us a little bit of something, because now we're going into the complete, the purgatory for like 4 months where nothing really kind of happens.
It's all UFL, baby.
Yeah. Luckily, we got a World Cup coming in a couple of weeks, so that'll be fun. Watching citizens get arrested during the World Cup, that'll be fun.
Yeah, ice baby being all over the place. And, as well, we are expected, or North America is expected to have some really bad heat this year. And if it's like anything like that FIFA World Cup last year, I think was just really hot. Be interesting to see how that goes and bodes well for the
you mean the one in
Cup.
Qatar? You mean the one in Qatar that was hot?
Like the one they had remember they had the Club World Cup last year? It was like all the best of the clubs played, and they had to cancel some of the games because it was so bloody hot in Florida.
Well, they're doing commercial. They're doing commercial breaks in this one, so they're going to have what they call them water breaks, but they're just commercial breaks. So America can sell you crypto.
And you know what? I think for a lot of world tourists, you hear about the Mexican cartels, but have you met them? And it might change your opinion. Who knows?
Yeah.
I guess in this episode, what we'll do is we'll go through some of the teams. We're not going to go through all 32 teams because that would be crazy. But let's look at some of the few of the teams, some of the picks they have. We'll start out first. Arizona taking running back Jeremiah Love. Obviously they relied on James Conner for so long. They also picked up Carson Beck, who, has been around in the league for a long time. He's their third pick. They pick up a few guys. How did you find, Arizona's one of those teams where it seems like they're always rebuilding. But Love is predicted to be one of the highest paid running backs in the game with all the incentives he's
It's
going to get.
I mean, I understand it because again, if you got Marvin, I think again they're one of those teams who's got their eyes on 2027. And I think there's a few teams like that. Like we got the Jets, we got them. There's going to be at least 3 or 4 teams positioning because this is the Arch Manning draft. There's going to be a couple
Yeah,
other guys that might even be higher depending on how they play. But this is going to be like the quarterback draft of a couple years ago. So
yeah,
I kind of see what they're doing. They're kind of almost like trying to, when they draft a quarterback, all the pieces are going to be there ready. We're going to have a great running back.
sure.
We're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to have Zach. No, not Zach Harris. McBride. We got a lot of
Yeah,
weapons. We can get this thing going. Put that quarterback in a position. So, like, if it was an Arch Manning, he could walk in with Jeremiah Love, Marvin Harrison Jr., McBride. Like, that's a
yeah,
great situation for any young quarterback. So, I think again, and it's also great for, Jacoby Brissett. He gets to kind of just have another toy in his back pocket that's going to
yeah,
make him that Geno money. That maybe again he's just going to be the new Fitz. He's going to be the guy that kind of goes from team to team. You need a bridge quarterback. Let me come in. He's just going to be disrespected his whole career, just getting on one team. Then they draft a quarterback. Next team draft a quarterback, and that's just going to be
yeah,
his life, and he's going to have to accept it. But I thought they did a good job. I think I understand it, but I don't know, man. Running back at 3 is just they have to be all world to kind of
yeah,
justify it in a way because other than we did see Saquon win the Super Bowl, but he didn't even have
yeah.
a great Super Bowl, but leading up to it, he had an incredible year.
Sure.
And it's just we just haven't seen those guys, who've been picked in the top 10 running backs bring team success, like Bijan have the Falcons won. Like Falcons haven't done
Yeah,
anything. Even the Cowboys when they drafted Ezekiel Elliott, nothing really they never even made it past they didn't even make it to the championship. So
yeah.
it's nice to have a shiny car in the garage, but it's expensive to maintain and sometimes it will not get you where you need to go.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Carson Beck, I think he's was in college for as long as Van Wilder was.
Yeah.
The difficulty when you are Arizona is your division, and let's be honest,
Yeah.
like that. This is it. You don't have a chance. You are fated for 4th. You'd be lucky if you don't. You've got the defending Super Bowl champions. You've got the Rams who are going all in, 49ers, Seahawks, and then there's ugly kid Joe sitting in the corner. So what are you going to do? You're going to go for it and go all in, or are you just going to like pad your stats, just pad your guys and go, okay, let's just wait, see what we can do,
Yeah,
see
I
what
think
guys we can get.
it's a great pick for next year doing it
Yeah,
now. And I think it's smart because it's like they know they're not going to be competitive. But listen,
yeah,
we can get a generational talent at running back that is going to get a year under his belt where he's just going to get beat up and probably,
yeah,
heavy boxes because nobody's going to respect Brissett. And by the time this rookie comes in, he's gonna be ready to go. He's got a year under his belt, so I think it's smart. I still don't love the premium pick, but in a draft where there's not like a Myles Garrett, a Micah Parsons, there's not that guy. Just get the
yeah.
best player in the draft, and by a lot of people's metrics, he was the best player.
Yeah. We'll move on to Baltimore. Baltimore took Oliviega Ione, who I've screwed up his name, but offensive guard for Penn State, 320 pounds, 6'4", big guy. They had quite a few picks in this draft, and they went heavy on some of the wide receivers, taking Jacoby Lane, USC, Elijah Sarrett from Indiana, tight end Matthew Hibner, and a running back out of Clemson as well. Not as much defense as you'd expect to see if they got one quarterback and a punter. What do you think about? And then they took that other guy, Diego, who was unpicked. They took him to the practice squad. How do you feel
Oh
about
yes,
Baltimore in
the
terms of what
runner-up
they
of
need
the
to do? Yeah.
Heisman. Um,
Yes.
I think again, to me, their team lives and dies by Lamar Jackson's health. Again, you lost your starting center. Your offensive line's been not great. Again, a bit of a mess, and you don't really know what you're going to be. You got an older running back in Derrick Henry, but I would have liked to see them get Lamar a weapon, like a real weapon
Mm-hmm.
to go. Like Zay Flowers is good, but Zay Flowers to me is like not an X, he's like a Z receiver. He's like a good number 2.
Yeah.
I got an amazing number 2, but as a number 1, can you really depend on him? He's small, he gets hurt, and it just feels like this team is getting older with their
Yeah.
defense a little bit, a couple pieces, especially with Henry. And I think they're just trusting Jesse Minter that he's going to be able to take care of the defense, kind of like Mike McDonald in Seattle. Just like, I'll take care of it. You just get me some offensive guys. Let's protect Lamar because their whole season lives and dies with Lamar. And you saw last year when he wasn't at his
Yeah.
best, when he got banged up, it just completely fell apart. So I think it's not a sexy pick, and nobody. When you watch your team draft a guard, it's so gross. You're just like, oh, I guess I'm not buying that
Yeah.
jersey. They don't even make them guard jerseys.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot
I
of
think,
letters on that jersey too.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's smart, but it's not sexy. And I just want Lamar to have weapons, like in the same way I want Josh
Yeah.
Allen to have weapons, like Joe Burrow has weapons. And it just feels like no other teams think that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
But
It's tough for them, and as you say, the windows are closing, multiple windows,
yeah.
and you get to a point. It's like, okay, we haven't made it to the AFC final in a long time. What's going to happen? How? What are we going to do now? Because eventually you're going to have to start looking at Lamar and go, old dog, take him out behind the woodshed. Which I don't think they do that
No,
in reality.
they don't do that.
Let's talk about Buffalo. Buffalo, we traded, Buffalo Bills traded down. The first pick they chose was an edge rusher, TJ Parker out of Clemson. You got Bradley Chubb in free agency, but then you take a cornerback. You got one wide receiver in Skylar Bell at UConn. A lot of defense. How did you feel with Buffalo that you guys drafted? It didn't seem like there was a lot on the plate for Buffalo. It seems like they were just filling a few gaps there.
No, I mean when you're at the back of the first round every year, it's hard, right? It just it's disappointing because it just feels Buffalo just drafts backups, where it's just like, yeah, we got a solid backup, and you're like, okay. I mean, that doesn't get me excited. It just feels good rotational guy, and you're like, oh,
Sure.
okay. Well, I'd rather a stud, like someone who could start, But I think the Bills made one good point, and one of their points with their second round pick at the corner was the Bills the last 2 years have been eliminated because of quarterback injuries, where they've had to put in backups and third stringer, fourth stringers in key moments, and every single one of those key moments they got exposed and those guys got beaten. It happened in the Kansas City game with Kyrie Elam. It happened in the Denver game, and I think they were smart to be like, we're not going to get caught in that position again, where we're putting in a guy from the street. It was barely played in the AFC Championship. So I think, and there was a little article. I think I'm just excited to just see what a new coordinator can get out of these guys. Like if Sean McDermott drafted that guy, I know what I would get out of him. It would be like 3 sacks, and he would barely start because he doesn't start rookies. So I don't know what to expect. I think a guy I know, or not a guy I know, a guy I listened to said a great point, and he always said, everyone loves their picks until they become players. So everyone's excited, and then as soon as they see the field, you're like, this guy is the bane of my existence. He's killing me. So I'm excited for. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the Bills were smart. I think Skylar Bell looks really good. I think giving Josh Allen weapons is always important. They've literally done nothing to help him over the last couple of years in the draft. So the fact that it was a 4th rounder was actually one of the highest picks they've done in a while. So I was overall happy, but not about you. What about with you and your Bears?
Well, we'll start with the Bears. We took on Dylan Thieneman, which I wasn't sure about at first. The safety out of Oregon, 6 foot, 201 pounds. But the guy's got speed, he's got hands, and we need a safety. We need some secondary. Yeah. So, I thought that was all right. Taking a center, obviously, it was good to have. Another tight end, Sam Roosh out of Stanford.
Well, wide receiver Zavion. That was a weird one, the tight end.
I would have been, we didn't get any edge rushers, which I was a bit surprised at. It's like, we do need to put more pressure on the quarterback. So I was a bit surprised we didn't take any. Another quarterback in Malik Muhammad, Kayshawn Elliott, linebacker and defensive tackle out of Georgia Tech. It was okay, but I trust in Ben. So, I think he knows what he's doing. I think he knows what he needs to put in there. So I was okay with it. I think the safety's good. I think he's going to be a starter, which is good. You want to get someone who can jump on, learn everything, and boom right into it. So, he was an all-American, Big Ten honors kind of guy. So I think it was good. You need someone there that's going to play some shutdown football. So I was okay with that.
Yeah, because he was rumored to go to Minnesota at like 18, 17. Almost everyone mocked him to Minnesota. So the fact that you got him
Yeah,
at 25 feels like a good pickup. But they say he's like a Harrison Smith, and big hitting
yeah,
safeties, especially in this day and age, are the most important.
yeah.
Having a safety that's not going to get beaten over the top is literally number one priority in most teams.
We'll go on to the Bengals, who obviously have a lot of defensive needs. Picking up Dexter Lawrence, but the big thing with them was the first guy they picked was Cassius Howell, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. To me, the interesting thing was they took two centers, 4th round and 6th round. They take Connor Lew out of Auburn and Brian Parker out of Duke. What are you taking two centers for? Like, I don't know. It felt, and then they've got a cornerback. There wasn't as much defense as I thought there were. Taking a wide receiver and Colby Young out of Georgia. Sure, he's got some speed. And then tight end Jack Endries out of Texas. It just felt like they should have been loading up. Cincinnati has some glaring defensive issues. I just thought they would go more D.
Well, I think one of their glaring defensive issues was stopping the run, and Dexter Lawrence definitely helps that. Again, just think with pass rushers, I think there were so many that get drafted in these. Because again, we see the Super Bowl, we see the pressure, and if you can't rush that, it's over. If you can't get rushed, but 60 to 70% of these guys are not going to hit. Like it's hard to get excited for them because it's like year after year you see these late first round guys and second round, third round pass rushers, and they're rotational at best. A lot of them, like the Myles Garrett's, Max Crosby's, they're hard to find. And even though Max Crosby was like a 4th rounder, to me it's such a crapshoot with edge that.
Yeah.
Almost certainly, whenever you draft a guy, you might as well expect him to be a bust. You always have to kind of make yourself feel okay with it because you know it's going to happen. And then if he becomes good, it's amazing. But as a Bills fan, I haven't had a good edge. We haven't had anyone who had 10 sacks in like a decade. So it's been grim.
We talk about people who fail when it comes to drafting. The Cleveland Browns, to me, are one of those teams that no matter how many picks they get, they always get it wrong. And they had a lot of picks. 2 first-round picks. They take Spencer Fano, 4th. Then they get Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, wide receiver. 2nd round, Denzel Boston out of Washington, another wide receiver. So, and then you sort of look at it. They also take Joe Royer, which was a tight end, and the big one, also Taylon Green out of Arkansas, another quarterback. More dicks in the massage room for Watson to play with. I mean, is this one of those things where, they're saying Watson is sort of coming across as the guy who'll probably start this season. Is Cleveland doomed to fail? Is that Cleveland? They always going to screw up the draft?
I kind of like what they did. I think they needed to get offensive line. I think the fact that they went, receiver in the back end of the first and early second means that, again, they needed that. Last year, like when you watch Shadur, all he did was dump it off to Fanning.
Yeah,
that it was literally just like they couldn't do anything with it. In fact, they got Jerry Jeudy, Concepcion, and Denzel Boston. I don't have any faith in that Deshaun Watson's going to come back and have this amazing career, but the fact that they're now kind of giving him, they're just kind of. It feels like they're not going with Shadur. This is just a chance to give Deshaun one more chance before they kind of But I think it's smart. But I think again, if Deshaun stinks, then they still. I think they still have. They'll probably still be the Browns, so they'll probably still be bad, especially in a really tough division like they're in. It's going to be tough for them no matter what. But they got a good defense, and now they just went offense. So because their defense really didn't have any problems, their offense was what killed them last year, almost every single game. So I like Concepcion. I think he's fast. With Jeudy and now Boston, they got a lot of dynamic. So if Deshaun Watson can somewhat put this together, they could be a fun little team to watch next year.
You're thinking about that because you look back at the Deshaun days, the glory days in the Houston Texans, and he had some, hell of an arm, could run. And you think, if he just got this time off and rests, and he knows this is his last season, he plays balls out. Cleveland fans like, where was this guy the whole time?
Yeah.
And also gives him a bit more trade value.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, crap, what are we going to do now? Let's go on to the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys, as it turns out, Jerry Jones originally, once the UAE withdrew from OPEC, he wanted to sign UAE. He's like, we get Dubai, oil. But it turns out he wasn't even thinking that. They get Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety, and then 2 edge rushers. So it's all D. They recognize on this. Dallas, look, we looked at just how Dak was still, he can ball out, man. You got Pickens has now signed his free agency tag. Is this like Dallas is in such this division that you sort of wonder, it's like, their defense was keeping them down. Is this the draft that Dallas needed?
Well, yeah, it was really good. I think Caleb Downs he was unanimously as one of the best players in the draft. The problem is nobody wants to pick a safety in the top 10 because it feels like, but you've seen in what they can do with guys like Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, who's just transformed their secondary. And I think he's the one problem with Dallas is they couldn't stop anybody in the past. People just went up and down the field on the left and right. So the fact that they needed, they did a couple trades. Where they got Leonard Quentin Williams from the Jets, who's really kind of solidified them. Again, like I said, are these pass rushers going to hit? I don't know, but the fact that Caleb Downs is almost certainly going to be great, and I think it's going to really make their defense that much better, especially with the fact that, like you said, Dak's gonna move the ball up and down the field. It's what he does. He's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's never been the problem. The problem has been the defense last year, and it's what killed them. And I think they're going to be a little spicy team next year to fight. And I think again that whole NFC East from top to bottom, I think is going to be battling it out. Every team's really improved themselves. I think, like especially the Giants.
I mean, I think, the big thing is also Dallas. They didn't really grab any. The running game is still going to have some issues with it. You need something to complement them. But, for them, it was a good D. They get the D haul in. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to try to grab Kamara, because he's still an option that people are going to want to take, that you need some sort of solid running back. So I thought Dallas was drafted pretty well. Move on to Detroit Lions. Detroit take on first-round Blake Miller, offensive tackle. Obviously, they need some help protecting Jared Goff. But then from there, it was, a linebacker, cornerback. They grab a wide receiver in Kendrick Law to Kentucky, but mostly just defense, from there. Obviously, Detroit sort of, losing a lot of their defensive core before. Detroit is struggling after the Bears won the division last year. Green Bay sniffing at them. Minnesota trying to make some changes as well. What do you think, Detroit? Did they address enough of their needs, or are they still going to have to get some more pieces?
I think, unfortunately, Detroit's biggest need is in the coaching department. I just think they got all the weapons. They have everything on offense. Like, what do you want? Like, other than Jared Goff, who's going to have his, moments, but they got the receivers. They got the running back. They got one of the best running. They got offensive line, Penei Sewell. In fact, they drafted another guy. They got Hutchinson on defense, Brian Branch in the secondary. Like, they got everything. But it's what killed them last year was their coordinators left, offensive and defensive, and they just kind of fell apart. So, and the fact that Goff gets older, is this going to work? And is Dan Campbell going to be calling plays again halfway through the season? To me, the biggest problem with Detroit is just what is going to happen in the coaching department all season long. Are they going to have consistency in play calling, offensive and defensive, or is Dan Campbell just going to go like try and do too much and then the team? I just don't. To me, they have a quarterback problem with Goff that in the big games in the end of the year in the cold weather he struggles. And I think they have a coaching problem with Dan Campbell. And I think Dan Campbell had so much talent that it masked his problems that I think no matter what they draft, I still think you got a Dan Campbell coaching problem in Detroit. And I don't think you fix that. And I think if Dan Campbell doesn't make the playoffs again this year with that team, I think they move on from him. So I think it's going to be a real interesting year for him.
Yeah, I see that. Like if you come so close to it and then you lose it all, there is going to be that. Well, what's the missing piece here? All right, we'll move on to the Houston Texans, who surprised everyone when they came. Started the season not looking good. It was all Colts, and then Houston puts it on, get a 12-5 record in 2025. The first pick, they trade with Buffalo. They get Kalen Rutledge, offensive guard out of Georgia Tech. We know how tough their defense is. Yeah. Then they take a defensive tackle. They get a tight end, and then offensive guard, linebacker, wide receiver. So obviously the Houston Texans know we got a good solid D, but the offense is what we need. Protect C.J. Stroud, get a few extra pieces, a few extra big bodies up front, and then see what we can do in terms of, trying to make a go for it this year, because who knows how good Indianapolis is going to be. Jacksonville has made some moves. But do you think this was good play by Houston?
I mean, if I was Houston, I would have drafted offensive lineman, receiver, offensive lineman, receiver, offensive lineman, receiver, and just not even worried about the defense. The defense is beast. You got D'Amico Ryans calling plays. You got everything. The problem on that team last year, and then it was the offensive line. They traded a bunch of their offensive linemen away. They're gonna have Tank Dell coming back. But to me, they got a CJ Stroud problem that they don't want to talk about. And that is it, because they got everything they need. Like, it's always funny. You always watch these teams. Seattle was the only one. Like, you get this generational defense, and if you don't have the quarterback that can get you over the edge, you waste it. Like the Jets had it a couple of years ago with how they looked, and nothing worked because the quarterback failed them. And I just think that's what we're watching right now, because you only get a couple more years left of, Daniil Hunter, and you're only going to have a couple more years left of some of these guys, and then their contracts come, and then you have to start paying all these guys, the Will Andersons and this, and some people have to go. And so to me, I think this is probably the storyline of the season is, what is CJ Stroud going to be? Because I think if he cannot get it together, the fact that he doesn't have a contract says everything. That they're just like, this is it. If you don't do it this year, we're done. I think they're done with him. I don't see how, if he's bad, they can bring him back and keep running this back, because every other quarterback in his position has gotten their contract. Even Tua got it because he had a better season and he didn't. So I think Stroud knows it, and this is a big season for him. And I am not confident that he's going to take that next step.
Yeah, no, the magnifying glass is definitely on him. The one good pick I will say Houston made was their 4th-round pick out of Clemson, taking Wade Woodaz. Gotta love him.
Woodass.
We'll see. Interesting pick. We go into Jacksonville, who also, was able to put a better record together last year. But, the second half of the season was great. They stuck in the first part. First pick, though, their 2nd round, they take a tight end in Nate Borkircher.
Which doesn't make any sense.
They take 2 tight ends. They took another one in the 5th round in Tanner Koziel. Defensive tackle. But, when you're looking at it, they had 10 picks in the draft. What is it, they were so inconsistent last season. And just like the Texans, they put it on second half of the season. Obviously got to play a couple games in London, but is this also the microscope for Trevor Lawrence? Because, he seems to be the best option that they have, but have they given enough tools, or does he have all the tools and this is just how Trevor Lawrence plays?
Yeah, he's got all the tools. I think even tight end, they have Brenton Strange, who looked, had moments last year. He was great. So he really came on last year. Parker Washington, they got They got receivers all over the place, and they can even bring in Travis Hunter. Even if they play him on defense, they can bring him in some packages and play him at receiver. So again, to me, this is a team that has everything in place. It's just a matter of, can Trevor Lawrence win the big game? Can he go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen last year? Like, he had the chance at the end of the game to drive down the field through an interception. So, I mean, to me, it's just protect Trevor Lawrence, because he had a really good comeback season last year. Their running games, now they've lost ETN, so their running game's a bit, is it going to be as good as it was without him? I don't know. But I think, to me, they're just, the fact that they drafted 2 tight ends made no sense. I think they took a lot of crap with that. But just keep loading up on defense, and hopefully Trevor Lawrence, you got Liam Cohen, you got the offensive play caller, so I mean, sure. I don't know. Again, like with all these guys, it's like, who knows? We're going to find out halfway through the season, being like, what were they thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's go into another team. We'll go into the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a disappointing 6-11 record last year, but they had 2 picks in the first round. No surprise, they go cornerback. They take Mansour Deline out of LSU, and then their second pick is taking Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson. look, this is going to be Travis's last year. He's getting married. He's marrying, I don't know, some girl. She's a singer or something like that.
Some hobo.
But they,
Some hobo.
there's some, yeah, she'll be nothing. Suddenly, all the Swifties try to cancel us. Get an edge rush. Running back, they get another wide receiver, and then they pick up Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of LSU. So full quarterback room. You know, we talked about the need of defense for the Chiefs and just how abysmal last season was. Obviously, with Patrick Mahomes, we don't know if he's going to be able to, when he'll be able to get back into the rhythm. But do you think this was enough for Kansas City? Did they get all the tools they could for the amount of picks they had?
I was surprised they traded up to get a corner. It just felt like if they just stayed at 9, he would have been there. I just don't think like very few corners go in the top 5, top 6. So the fact that they traded up, I thought they were going to trade up for like Arvell Reese or something like that, or like an edge. But again, they lost a lot of secondary on that Chiefs team, and losing McDuffie is huge. They had to replace him, So I think it was smart. I think Peter Woods is they're starting to plan life without Chris Jones, who's kind of getting up there now in his 30s. He's only got probably a couple of years left, so if they can get a guy who can kind of work under him and take over, I think, because Chris Jones has been one of the best players in the NFL. I thought this makes me feel like Tyreek Hill is 100% coming back to the Chiefs because the fact that they didn't draft a receiver, like really kind of push it in the first and second rounds because, again, you got Rashee Rice, but can you trust this guy? He's always in problems. There's always problems. Yeah. Do you really want to give him a big contract? So you got Xavier Worthy, who just sometimes is invisible, doesn't really show, kind of like Keon Coleman, just disappear. Yeah. So I think there's no doubt that Tyreek's coming back. They're just waiting to make it a big spectacle. But I think they were smart. I think the Chiefs give Spags some more weapons. That defense, their offense will be fine. They got Andy Reid. They got Kenneth Walker. So I think I would have thought maybe a bit more offensive line they would have gone. Maybe try and get a good offensive lineman. So to kind of protect Holmes, especially coming off a torn ACL. You think you want to protect your quarterback, but they were less willing to do that, which I was quite surprised with.
Yeah, and I think for all those Chiefs fans who burned their Tyreek Hill jerseys when he left, we'll be regretting that and heading to a charity shop to see if they can get another. Yeah. Let's move on to the Rams, who made an interesting pick, taking quarterback Ty Simpson, a.k.a. Matthew Stafford's understudy, at pick number 13. A lot of people surprised. Is it a surprise that they would try to choose the best available quarterback, knowing that Stafford's getting up in age? He's, that this is probably his last year as well?
It makes sense from like a team building aspect, but it doesn't make sense from a winning aspect because it's like the Rams were so close, and like if what they were kind of missing was maybe another receiver, another defensive guy, another Pete, but to draft someone who's not even going to play, it's very Packers-ish, like when the Packers did that, and you're so close to winning the Super Bowl, and you drafted Jordan Love. It worked out for them in the end. Jordan Love's been really good, and I think again, to me, the question is Sean McVay even going to be around to coach this guy? So it's like unless he's if Sean McVay was planning on going out, with Matthew Stafford, win a Super Bowl, and they both walk away, he goes on TV for a couple of years, then comes back. But this must indicate he wants to come back, I would think, because there were there was a little press conference that made it look like he was pissed off. I don't know. I feel like you're not going to lie to Sean McVay and not tell him who you're drafting. You know what I mean? So exactly. He must have been on board with it. And again, I think for winning now, it's a terrible move. For long run, if it works out, it's great. But again, he hasn't played much, and he's only a one-year starter. So I think again, he's going to sit behind Stafford with McVay, and it didn't make sense, and I think they're going to regret it when playoff time comes and there's an injury, and they're not going to be turning to Ty Simpson. I'll tell you that. So.
Well, that could be interesting because we saw the amount of quarterback injuries that happened last year. And maybe it is a bold move. Maybe, the kid rides the pines. He learns the system. He gets into it. He learns the cadence from Stafford. And, all good quarterbacks, beyond a decade ago used to sit on the bench. So maybe this is good. When you've got a guy who gets injured as often as Stafford, maybe this is something that is good. Who knows how it goes, and maybe it turns around for them. But you thought maybe they would take a few more offensive guys, and they didn't. We'll move on to the Las Vegas Raiders, who had number 1 pick in the draft. And surprise, surprise, they took Fernando Mendoza. Crazy. But they had quite a few picks. They take Trayton Stukes, safety out of Arizona, Kayvon Crawford, Auburn edge rusher, a center, a cornerback, a running back to complement Genty, I guess, maybe a bigger bodied guy in Mike Washington Jr. But, and then they even got Malik Benson out of Oregon, who's got some good hands on him. For the Raiders, how worse can you get? It's nothing but up, right, for them this year. And we'll see what happens if it's going to be Mendoza or if it's going to be Cousins who's starting.
It's going to be Mendoza. It'll be Mendoza. I'm surprised he didn't go receiver. I think the Raiders are desperately in need of receivers, of weapons. That I would have thought maybe they jump back in and get Omar Cooper is like Mendoza's receiver at college. I would have thought that would have been a smart move to do, but it feels like they're just willing to be like, okay, we're going to go Genty and Bowers. We got the offensive line. We're going to be a run heavy team, and we're going to be smart with the football and just kind of dump it off the bat. But I would have liked to see a bit more weapons. Maybe they have, a little bit of a plan. Maybe they're like, hey, let's go get AJ Brown with the whole situation going on with the Patriots right now, just kind of undercut him, bring in AJ Brown. That could be a real fun little thing for that team. But again, the Raiders did the smart move. They got Mendoza. Again, there's lots of people saying he's going to be great. There's also, I've seen lots of people saying it's like, I don't know about this guy if he's got. Again, that's the thing with these quarterbacks. It depends on, they got the right coach in. I think they got an offensive coach to deal with them. You got Tom Brady in there who's going to be able to kind of bring him under his wing, give him his little secret sauce, basically cheat, and teach him how to cheat.
Yeah.
But I think the Raiders have done a really good job this whole offseason of. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be way more interesting than the last couple of years because they've been a disaster for like a decade now. So I think they're on the right track finally.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because there were some times you'd watch the games last year. It's like, what are you guys? You can't even do anything. Do something. Do something. We'll move into Miami, who is in worse shape than Live Golf. But they got 13 picks in this one, including Caden Proctor. Big guy, 6'6", offensive tackle out of Alabama. They quarterback, linebacker. They had a wide receiver, a tight end, some edge rusher, but there's a lot of D and a few pieces of offense in here. I mean, Miami, obviously, I don't know if it's a rebuild or reinvigorate or what it is, but, Miami, does it really matter? Is it, with what they're going this year, can they be a surprise team or are they just going to be a middling team?
I don't even think they're going to be a middling. They'll be like, I think they're going to be one of the teams battling for the number one pick. I think they're right now with Malik Willis. Again, getting an offensive lineman is great. Getting a little bit of receiver help is great. But again, I don't think anyone's seeing Malik Willis coming in and turning this team around. Like he was great coming in as a backup, being able to move the ball up and down with the Packers. But being a franchise quarterback is completely different, especially when they've traded away every weapon you have. They got Achane, but I don't know, man. I'm just not optimistic about this Dolphins team. I think they had a decent draft, but until you settle that quarterback again, I think a lot of these teams are just drafting for 2027. They're just saying, let's just get pieces that are going to be important for us next year because next year is going to be a complete write-off. And I don't think the Dolphins, like the Jets at least did, with getting a tight end and getting, Omar Cooper, they're like Geno Smith. I think the Jets are going to be way more competitive than the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins probably are the worst team in football next year, in my opinion.
Wow.
So, if I was going to guess, I would say they would be the worst team in football next year.
Good thing they're in your division. Also in your division, made it to the Super Bowl, New England Patriots, who surprisingly took Kay Adams in the first. I think Vrabel has his sights set.
Had his eye on it.
Yeah, hey, make me a Spotify playlist. Caleb Lomo, they take offensive tackle out of Utah, a tight end, cornerback, offensive tackle. They also take a quarterback in Byron Morton out of Texas Tech. But a lot of offense on here for them. Is it surprising that they didn't go more D?
No, I think the problem was, I said, we saw it in the Super Bowl. It was protecting the quarterback. The fact that, Will Campbell was a disaster in that game. Their guard was a disaster in that game, and you don't know what that type of game does to a player. Like, are you going
Yeah,
to come back from that? Or are they just being like, yeah, maybe we should just have a backup plan in case this guy completely implodes? So I feel like it's a bit about that. I think they're smart. I think AJ Brown's pretty much in the bag because they didn't really go for receiver. They kind of avoided it in a way, and they are desperate in need
yeah,
of weapons. That team, especially getting rid of Diggs, like they have nobody right now. They
yeah,
might not even have a coach. We don't even know about that. So I feel like it was fine. I think getting offensive line is smart, but to me, Drake May's going to need some weapons. I don't know what the plan is. If they don't get AJ Brown, then they're in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble next year. They
yeah.
could
It's
be
gonna be
even like in
hard to
trouble to make the
repeat. And you,
playoffs. To be honest with you,
yeah, you wonder if Vrabel did all that stuff with Rosini just to take the pressure off Will Campbell.
yeah.
It's like, kid, I gotcha. I'll create a
I'll
shitstorm.
take one for the team.
Um, yeah. We'll move on to the New York Giants, who big surprise. I mean, they ended up 4-13. They didn't seem like a 4-13 team. They were playing all right. They take Arvell Reese, number 5, out of Ohio State, linebacker. Get an offensive tackle. They get a cornerback, another wide receiver when they traded up to get Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, and then a few defensive things. I mean, everyone's really talking about the darlings that the Giants will be this year. Tough division, with the
Yeah.
Eagles smarting from last year, but you've had a bit of CTE, and some of their guys, Jackson Dart will be back. Scatabo will be back. Giants, they got Harbaugh. Is this good enough, do you think? Or are they still, it's still going to be a struggle for them?
Well, listen, no, I think they did a really good job. I would have liked to get another like a receiver, maybe. I thought, but I think the fact that Jackson Dart kept getting all those concussions, I think they just need to Scatterbo, the concussion, the bushwhackers, basically,
Yeah.
Scatterbo and Jackson Dart. They got to kind of protect those guys. So I think it was smart. Getting Arvell Reese, the fact that if they can get, the fact they trade Dexter Lawrence, they got Arvell Reese, they got, last year's the number 2 pick. It's just good. They're just could have a solid defense, especially with Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh's really kind of
Yeah.
positioned himself in a nice little spot to kind of take this team and be a real challenge. Like I think the Giants, if Jackson Dart can take that next step, and if Malik Neighbors comes back healthy after his knee injuries, again, they did lose Wan'Dale Robinson, so I still think they're missing a receiver, and I still think they need another weapon for Jackson Dart. But
Yeah.
I think the fact that they finally have a coach that's just going to be like an adult in the room that can kind of get this team organized, playing smart football, and I like what they did. I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, and I think if they want to increase the drama, Antonio Brown,
Yeah.
bring him back. We talk about the New York team, the New York Jets, miserable 3-14 last year. They take 3 picks in the first round. They take second pick, David Bailey, who edge rusher out of Texas Tech, big dude. Their second pick was Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon, and then Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. And then they take a quarterback, which is probably good. Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. But you talked about how exciting you thought the Jets were. Do you think taking these 3 picks in the first round, do you think the Jets were quite aggressive in terms of this draft?
No, I think what they're doing is setting themselves up for next year. I think what they're doing is let's get a bunch of guys that can get some experience that when we're going to have Garrett Wilson, who's already a dog. He's one of the best receivers in the game. And if you can get, Omar Cooper to learn from him, you can get Sadiq, these guys that when they draft that quarterback, everything, Brees Hall, they got a good offensive line. If again, we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Glenn, but I think the Jets did a really good job. The only problem is they're the Jets, and we don't know.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen before with what are they going to do? They're probably are they going to be with Geno kind of good enough that they knock themselves out of getting one of the best quarterbacks? But the good thing is they have 3 number 1 picks. 3 first-round picks next year. So no matter what, they can move up and do some damage and get a quarterback. So I think they've really set themselves up for a good thing. The thing is, I'm not really worried because I have no faith that the Jets can get the quarterback right or get the coach right, or with Woody Johnson, as the head of the snake. I'm not worried,
Yeah.
but I did like their draft. It worried me. If it was any other team other than the Jets, I'd be worried.
The Eagles surprisingly took a wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon. He's only 5'11", 192, out of USC. They take tight end second at Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. Quarterback at Cole Payton, North Dakota State at 5th. And then the big one that I was surprised at, Bernard from Nigeria, defensive tackle. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's never played before.
Never played football.
And maybe they're going with the whole Jordan Mailata thing, which is we'll teach him. But the Eagles, when they dropped so suddenly last year and go from Super Bowl champs to chumps, is this good enough, do you think, or the Eagles fans still be screaming at them for what they chose?
Well, it feels like they're definitely trading A.J. Brown when they drafted Lemon. That's all I got out of this whole draft. I think their defense is fine, and their number one problem is they have a Jalen Hurts problem that they don't want to talk about right now. They're just like, everything's good, but everything doesn't seem good. The fact that your quarterback can't seem to get along with his players, the fact that A.J. Brown's reading books on the sideline because he just doesn't want to talk to his quarterback, it's a bit of a disaster. So I'm fascinated to see how Jalen Hurts plays this year. Is it going to be is Mekhi, again, especially having to depend on a receiver? I think they got Devontae Smith's great. He's a great player. But to me, this whole season is just going to come down to Jalen Hurts can keep this up. And I am worried, especially with all the articles coming up about, people that they don't get along, that there's problems. I think this is, especially, and you don't have really the head coach who's the mature adult in the room. And I think that's going to be a problem. That doesn't help things. So I think they're going to be a fun, fascinating team to watch next year.
Jumping into Pittsburgh quickly because, obviously, is Aaron Rodgers coming back? The first pick that the Steelers make, hometown, is Max Hennecore, offensive tackle, massive guy, 6'5", 320. To me, the funniest, their second pick was Rodgers being anti-vax. They take Jeremy Bernard. Taking a guy named Jeremy, I just think is funny. But, I mean, wide receiver. Then they get a quarterback in their third pick, a Drew Allard of Penn State. A lot of picks. Is this, and you take another wide receiver, and a tight end. A lot of offensive tools here for Rodgers. Does it look like? Is this? I mean, it seems like they're all in on him.
Well, it's just it's a hostage situation. They have no choice. They don't have anything else to do. They got this guy. They have to make him happy. They got his coach, Mike McCarthy, who he won a Super Bowl with. They got weapons in the offseason. They draft offensive linemen. If he can't do it, it's on him. He's got no one else to blame other than himself, and he's never going to blame himself because he's Aaron Rodgers. So it'll always be someone else's fault. It'll be the Illuminati. It'll be the Illuminati's fault if he doesn't make it this year. So
those damn Illuminati guys.
They did a fine job. I think, again, protect Rodgers, but to me, they have a running back problem. I would have liked to see them get a really good running back. I think the receivers are going to be fine, but I'm still not even. I don't think DK Metcalf is like this dominant player anymore, and so even the receivers, as better as they are still fine at best, I think so. And then you got Rodgers, who's 43 years old and is miserable, and he's in a darkness retreat. So again, I don't think it doesn't matter what you do in Pittsburgh because they're in kind of this Mike McCarthy purgatory where he's going to be the coach for a couple of years, and then he's going to get fired, and then they're going to have to blow everything up. They're going to trade T.J. Watt in the next couple of years, try to get something for him, and it's all going to collapse after this year, I think. So
there will be a bit of a hangover for Pittsburgh.
Fall of Rome, so.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers struggled last year. They grabbed Reuben Bain Jr. Out of Miami, edge rusher, linebacker, and then they did a few weird trade backs and ups, but they get Ted Hurst, Georgia State, wide receiver, tight end. It doesn't seem to address a lot of the issues, particularly when you lose Mike Evans. Is Tampa Bay going to struggle? I mean, they seem like they want to keep Baker Mayfield happy, but is this the kind of draft that's going to make him happy?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really know. I think Baker, they're just kind of in a weird spot where they got Todd Bowles and Baker, and I don't think they're confident going forward with either. I think they're going to see how Baker goes this year. If he can stay healthy, if he gets banged up, is Bowles' D going to get better? I think Reuben Baines is really good, and I think a lot of people like him. But again, I think they're just – I just don't know how much Baker gives you that advantage to, like, he's fun, you like him, you want him as your quarterback when you have him because he's this kind of underdog always. But I just think they got too many problems that, and it's a Todd Bowles problem, number one. I just don't
Yeah.
think he's the coach that's going to take Baker to the next level, and they got to get rid of him if they're going to get Baker to that next level. But I need to go after this one. I got to go soon.
Yeah,
I have
the
to go
last
at
one I'm
7:30.
with you. We'll just do
Yeah.
last. So we're going to talk on Tennessee quickly. Pick up
Right.
Carnell Tate, wide receiver, and Nicholas Singleton. Do you think that the Titans have enough now pieces to get going here? Because Cam Ward obviously was not given enough. Do they have enough pieces for him now?
I mean, I think they had to get Carnell Tate. I think, again, they couldn't. You've invested so much in Ward that you cannot just ignore that. You have as much, even though you got Robert Saleh, you just have to be like, dude, you're a defensive coach, fix this mess that we have. But the number one thing, and I think he probably saw that when he was the coach of the Jets, is we need to help our quarterback. We need to give him weapons. We need to make it, because Robert Saleh is not going to get a third chance at this. So I think it was really smart by them to do it. I think once they realized they weren't going to get Love, that they just said, listen, let's not fuck around. Let's get the first best receiver in the draft, and let's just give him that guy. And I think, again, because Cam Ward looked bad in a lot of games last year. So,
Yeah.
and I don't even think they're sure, but if you will definitely fail if you don't get him a weapon at least. So I think they were the smart decision to get Carnell Tate, definitely.
Well, we'll see by that. They got a new wide receiver room, so we'll see what happens there. Folks, thanks a lot for listening to this podcast. We'll be back with another one soon. That's it for our NFL Draft Recap.